Hi, my name is Emma Carter. I'm 21 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. I'm a college student studying business management, and like most students, I have dreams of traveling, meeting new people, and experiencing different cultures. But there's one thing that has always made me nervous: speaking English fluently and confidently, especially in unfamiliar situations. English is my first language, but that doesn't mean I always feel confident when speaking, especially in places where I have to communicate with new people quickly. I've always been a little shy, and sometimes I overthink my words. I know many people struggle with this, whether English is their first language or not. I want to share my experience of going to the airport alone for the first time, and how it became an important step in improving my English and my confidence. It all started when I had to travel from Austin to New York for a college conference. My professor had nominated me to represent our class, and while I was excited, I was also nervous. Not about the flight itself, but about all the conversations I'd have to have. The thought of asking for directions, talking to airport staff, and dealing with unexpected situations made me feel uneasy. I had been to the airport before, but always with my parents. This time, I had to handle everything on my own. I kept telling myself, Emma, you know English. You just have to speak. But in reality, it's not always that simple. The day of my flight. The morning of my flight, I woke up early, double-checked my suitcase, and made sure I had everything: my passport, ID, boarding pass, and my phone charger. My mom gave me a hug and some last-minute advice. Just stay calm, speak clearly, and don't be afraid to ask questions, she said. I nodded, but my heart was racing. I got into an Uber and headed to the airport. The driver, a friendly guy named James, started a conversation. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "To New York," I replied. "For business or vacation?" "A college conference," I said, feeling a little more relaxed. We talked a little more, and I realized that simple conversations like this were already helping me feel more comfortable. Speaking English isn't just about knowing words, it's about using them in real situations. Arriving at the airport, when I stepped into the airport, I was immediately surrounded by a mix of different sounds: announcements over the speakers, people talking, rolling suitcases. It felt overwhelming. I took a deep breath and went to the check-in counter. A woman named Lisa greeted me with a smile. "Good morning. Where are you traveling today?" she asked. "To New York," I replied, handing her my ID and ticket. She typed on her computer. "Do you have any checked bags?" "No, just my carry-on." She printed my boarding pass and handed it to me. "Gate 14, security is straight ahead." "Have a great flight." I smiled and said, "Thank you." That was easy. One conversation done. I could do this. Going through security next was security. I stood in line, watching how people placed their bags on the conveyor belt and walked through the scanners. When it was my turn, the TSA officer, a man named Robert, asked, "Any liquids in your bag?" I hesitated for a second. Just a small bottle of lotion." "Take it out and place it in the bin." I quickly did as he said. Then, he asked me to remove my shoes and jacket. After going through the scanner, another officer checked my bag. "This your laptop?" he asked. "Yes," I answered. "Next time, take it out of the bag before it goes through the scanner." "Oh, okay, sorry." "It's fine. Have a good flight." I grabbed my things and walked away, feeling relieved. I had just gone through a real-life English-speaking situation, and I survived. Finding my gate now, I had to find my gate. The airport was huge, and the signs were everywhere. I saw a woman in a uniform standing nearby and decided to ask, "Excuse me, "Where is gate 14?" I asked. She smiled. "Go straight down this hall, then turn left. You'll see it on your right." "Thank you so much." "You're welcome." As I walked to my gate, I realized something important. People are actually nice. They don't expect you to speak perfectly. They just want to understand you. Ordering coffee, I had about an hour before my flight, so I decided to get a coffee. I walked up to a Starbucks counter, and the barista, a young guy named Chris, greeted me. "What can I get for you?" he asked. A caramel latte, please." "What size?" Medium." "You mean grande?" I smiled, feeling a little embarrassed. "Yeah, grande." "No worries. That'll be $5.75. I paid and waited for my drink. It was such a small moment, but it reminded me of how everyday conversations help with confidence. Talking to a fellow passenger, when I finally sat at my gate, a girl around my age sat next to me. She had a book in her hand and seemed friendly. "Are you going to New York too?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "for a college event." "Oh, cool. I go to NYU. What's your major?" "Business management." We started talking, and I realized something. When I focused on the conversation instead of my fear, English came naturally. Boarding the plane, when it was time to board, I handed my ticket to the flight attendant. "Enjoy your flight," she said. "Thank you." As I found my seat, I thought about the day. I had spoken English so many times without even thinking about it. I had asked for directions, ordered coffee, and had a conversation with a stranger, all in English. Speaking a language isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to use it. After the plane took off and the gentle hum of the engines filled the cabin, I settled into my seat and allowed myself a quiet moment to reflect. The steady rhythm of the flight reminded me that every journey was a series of small, meaningful steps, and mine was all about learning to trust my own voice. Even though I had spent my whole life speaking English, every new experience tested my ability to use it in ways that a classroom never could. Landing in New York City was like stepping into a new world. As the plane descended over the sprawling urban landscape, the tall skyscrapers and endless buzz of activity promised both excitement and challenge. When the plane finally touched down at John F. Kennedy International Airport, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I gathered my belongings and joined the stream of travelers disembarking, eager to continue my journey. Exiting the terminal, I was greeted by the crisp New York air and a mosaic of faces, each reflecting a unique story. I stepped into a taxi parked just outside, where the driver, a cheerful man named Christopher, greeted me with a warm, "Welcome to New York." "Where to today?" I replied, "I'm headed to the Manhattan Conference Center for a college event." As we drove through the bustling streets, I marveled at the towering buildings and vibrant energy of the city. Every honking horn and flashing billboard was a reminder that I was far from home, yet every conversation I overheard in English reaffirmed my determination to keep learning and growing. Arriving at the conference center, I paused at the entrance to take a deep breath before stepping inside. The building was filled with fellow students, professors, and professionals, all eager to share ideas and experiences. As I walked through the lobby, my eyes were drawn to a series of posters advertising various workshops and presentations. Each poster seemed to promise a new opportunity to connect and communicate. I felt a mixture of nerves and excitement bubbling inside me, knowing that soon I'd have to put my English skills to the test once again in front of an audience. Inside the main hall, I registered at the welcome desk, where a friendly volunteer named Karen handed me a name tag and a schedule for the day's events. Good morning, Emma Carter, she said with a kind smile. We're glad you're here. Enjoy the conference. That simple exchange was enough to remind me that despite the challenges I sometimes faced, people were genuinely supportive and encouraging. During the opening remarks, I listened intently as a well-known professor, Dr. Michael Anderson, spoke about the importance of embracing new experiences and learning from each interaction. His words resonated with me deeply, as they captured the essence of my own journey, from the nervous girl navigating airport lines to the confident student ready to face new challenges. I found myself scribbling notes furiously, not just about the academic content, but about the way his passion for communication reminded me of why I was here. After the session, I found a quiet corner near a refreshment table and reviewed my schedule for the day. The conference was filled with panels on entrepreneurship, global business trends, and even a workshop on effective public speaking, all topics that were directly related to my major in business management. I also noticed several sessions dedicated to personal development and language proficiency. It was as if the event had been designed to celebrate every aspect of growth, both academic and personal. Before the next session began, I decided to venture out of the main hall and explore the exhibit area. Here, companies and organizations from across the United States had set up interactive booths, each one offering insights into innovative business practices. At one booth, a representative from a tech startup named InnovateX explained how they were using artificial intelligence to revolutionize customer service. I found myself naturally drawn into the conversation, asking questions about their projects and sharing my own experiences as a student. The conversation flowed smoothly, each question and answer reinforcing my belief that speaking English in a professional context was not only possible, but also deeply rewarding. Later, while enjoying a light lunch in a small cafe adjacent to the conference center, I struck up a conversation with another attendee, a young woman named Sarah. With a friendly smile and an accent that hinted at an international background, she remarked, "I remember the first time I had to present in English. It felt like my heart was about to burst out of my chest." We laughed together, and she shared her own story of overcoming language barriers during her studies at New York University. Sarah's candidness made me feel less alone in my struggles. We talked about the importance of practice, the role of perseverance, and how every mistake was a stepping stone toward improvement. The afternoon sessions were a whirlwind of insightful presentations and lively Q&A segments. I remember one particularly engaging panel discussion on cross-cultural communication, where a moderator named Jonathan and a diverse group of speakers shared their experiences working with clients from around the globe. One speaker, a business consultant from California named Angela, described a moment when she had to negotiate a major contract with partners who spoke only Spanish. Although her English wasn't perfect, her determination and willingness to learn had turned a potential disaster into a triumph. Her story inspired me, and I found myself jotting down every detail, determined to emulate that same spirit in my own journey. Between sessions, I had a few moments to explore the conference center's library, a quiet, sunlit space lined with books and comfortable seating. I spent some time reading a book on effective communication techniques and scribbling ideas in my notebook. It was here that I also met Professor Davis, a kind and patient mentor who had a reputation for encouraging students to embrace their unique voices. "Emma," he said gently as he noticed my notes, "don't be afraid to express yourself, even if it's not perfect. Every word you speak builds your confidence." His advice echoed in my mind, reaffirming my belief that learning is an ongoing process, one that is enriched by every conversation and every mistake. As the day turned to evening, the conference drew to a close with a final panel on future trends in global business. The discussion was dynamic and forward-thinking, and I found myself fully immersed in the exchange of ideas. I realized that the journey I had embarked on at the airport was just the beginning, a single flight that had taken me from one physical space into a broader landscape of ideas, ambitions, and connections. Every interaction, every question, every conversation was a thread in the tapestry of my growth as a student and as a speaker of English. After the conference ended, I left the center with a sense of accomplishment and a head full of new insights. The city beckoned me to explore further, and I decided to spend the night in a small hotel near Times Square. The streets of New York, illuminated by neon lights and filled with the hum of nightlife, were as vibrant as the conversations I had experienced throughout the day. In the hotel lobby, I struck up a brief conversation with a fellow traveler named Marcus, who was on his way to a business meeting. His calm confidence and easy rapport in English reassured me that with time and practice, I too could master the art of clear and confident communication. That night, as I lay in bed listening to the distant sounds of the city, I thought about all the faces I had seen, the voices I had heard, and the myriad ways in which speaking English had become a bridge connecting me to a world of endless possibilities. It wasn't just about fluency in a language. It was about understanding and being understood, about sharing my story and learning from others, and about taking risks even when uncertainty lurked around every corner. In the days that followed, I immersed myself in every opportunity to engage with others. I attended additional workshops, visited local landmarks, and even took a few impromptu tours led by locals who were eager to share their knowledge of New York's hidden gems. At one memorable moment, I joined a group of students at a cozy, independent bookstore in Greenwich Village. We spent hours discussing everything from literature and art to business trends and cultural nuances. I found that as I participated in these conversations, my initial hesitation began to fade away. I was no longer just a student trying to learn English. I was a participant in a vibrant, ever-changing dialogue. Every encounter was a lesson. I learned that confidence wasn't about never making mistakes. It was about embracing each error as a valuable part of the learning process. I learned that sometimes a pause in conversation wasn't a sign of failure, but an invitation to reflect and respond thoughtfully. And most importantly, I learned that the simple act of speaking, of putting my thoughts into words, was a powerful tool that could open doors, spark friendships, and create opportunities I had only ever dreamed of. On my last day in New York, I decided to revisit the airport, not as a place of transit, but as a symbol of my journey. Standing in the familiar space of the terminal once more, I marveled at how much had changed in such a short time. I remembered the nervousness of my first solo trip through security, the excitement of my conversations with strangers, and the overwhelming sense of achievement that came from every successful interaction. The airport, with its constant comings and goings, had transformed from a place of anxiety into a vibrant crossroads of stories and aspirations. Before boarding my flight back to Austin, I took a final moment to speak with a couple of airport staff. Lisa, the check-in agent who had greeted me earlier that day, noticed me lingering by the counter. "Heading home already?" she asked with a knowing smile. I nodded and replied, "Yes, but I'm taking a little piece of New York with me." Today taught me that every journey, every conversation, no matter how small, makes me a better speaker and a more confident person. Lisa patted my shoulder kindly and said, "Keep speaking, Emma. The world is waiting for your voice. As I boarded the plane once again, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for all that I had experienced. I realized that learning English wasn't just about mastering grammar or memorizing vocabulary. It was about living the language, engaging with people, and daring to be part of the great conversation that connected us all. Now back in Austin, I carry with me not only memories of New York's bright lights and bustling streets, but also a renewed belief in my ability to communicate, share, and connect. Every time I speak, whether in a classroom, at a coffee shop, or even on a casual phone call, I remember that journey through the airport and beyond. A journey where each word built bridges to new friendships, insights, and opportunities. I now understand that real-life experiences, like navigating an airport or engaging in spontaneous conversations in a foreign city, are the true classrooms of language. They teach you resilience, encourage you to embrace uncertainty, and ultimately help you find your own unique voice. And though I still have much to learn, I'm excited by the endless possibilities that lie ahead. Every conversation, every interaction is a chance to grow and to connect with the world around me. In reflecting on this journey, I feel that my path as a student has been forever enriched. My experiences at the airport, on the plane, and throughout New York have become an integral part of my personal narrative. A reminder that the act of speaking is a courageous step towards self-improvement and global connection. I share my story not just to document a personal achievement, but to encourage anyone who struggles with language to step out of their comfort zone, to make mistakes, and to embrace the beautiful, messy process of learning. For every traveler who has felt anxious in a crowded terminal, every student who has stumbled over words in a foreign tongue, and every person who has ever doubted their ability to connect with others, know that your voice matters. With each conversation, you pave the way for new adventures, new ideas, and new understandings of the world. And who knows? Perhaps one day, your journey will inspire someone else to take that brave first step. Returning to Austin, I carried the echoes of New York with me in every step. At college, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and confidence that had slowly but surely transformed me from the hesitant girl who once doubted every word into someone who now embraced every conversation as a chance to grow. In the first week back on campus, I noticed that even simple interactions carried a different weight. I found myself actively participating in class discussions. During a lively debate on global business strategies in one of my business management lectures, I recalled the panel in New York, where professionals from all over the world exchanged ideas. With my heart steady and my mind clear, I offered insights that were informed not just by theory, but by my own experience of stepping out into a world of real-life English conversations. My professor, Dr. Michael Anderson, gave me a nod of approval, and a few classmates even commented that my perspective was refreshingly practical. Inspired by that moment, I joined the campus debate club, a decision that would further test my ability to articulate my thoughts in English. In our first meeting, I met a diverse group of students. Alex, whose quick wit often sparked laughter in the room, and Samantha, who had traveled from a small town in Georgia, much like me, in search of broader horizons. As we gathered around a table at our favorite campus cafe, the conversation flowed naturally. I shared my experience at the airport and in New York, describing in detail how every interaction, from ordering coffee to discussing complex business trends, had gradually peeled away layers of my insecurity. One crisp autumn afternoon, while sitting in the university library, I revisited my notebook filled with scribbled reminders from Professor Davis. His advice to never fear an imperfect word had become my mantra. I remembered the nervous smile of the TSA officer, Robert, and the friendly guidance of Lisa at the check-in counter. These memories reinforced the idea that every mistake was merely a stepping stone toward mastery. The library's quiet ambiance gave me time to reflect on how far I had come and how much further I could go. I began outlining ideas for a presentation about overcoming language barriers, determined to share my journey with my peers. My newfound self-assurance soon opened doors I hadn't even considered before. One day, during office hours, Professor Davis, who had always been patient and encouraging, mentioned an opportunity that set my heart racing: a summer internship at a well-respected local company specializing in international trade. He explained that the position involved interacting with clients, both within and outside the United States, where clear and confident communication was key. Though the idea of another high-pressure situation initially filled me with anxiety, I recalled the empowering experiences of New York. I spent several nights rehearsing potential interview questions in front of the mirror, and even joined a small study group where we practiced impromptu speeches and role-playing various professional scenarios. The interview day arrived, and I stepped into a sleek, modern office building with a mix of excitement and nerves. In a glass-walled conference room, I was introduced to the panel. Ms. Laura Green, the HR manager, known for her warm yet discerning smile. Mr. Kevin Ramirez, a senior executive with an eye for detail, and a couple of younger colleagues who, like me, were eager to make their mark. When it was my turn to present my ideas, I took a deep breath, imagining all those moments at the airport, at the coffee counter, and in the busy corridors of New York. I spoke clearly about the importance of communication in building trust and fostering growth in a global business environment, drawing parallels with my own journey of learning English through real-life interactions. My words, though simple and earnest, conveyed a passion that resonated with the panel. By the end of the interview, I could see a spark of approval in their eyes, and within a few days, I received the call offering me the internship. That summer was a whirlwind of challenges and revelations. My days were filled with drafting emails, attending meetings, and engaging with colleagues from diverse cultural backgrounds. One particularly memorable day, I was tasked with presenting a new marketing strategy to a group of international clients. Standing before them, I felt the familiar flutter of nerves. But as I began to speak, I remembered every encouraging word from my journey. I explained the campaign's vision and objectives with clarity, punctuating my presentation with personal anecdotes from my earlier travels. Stories of smiling airport staff and friendly baristas who had all helped me find my voice. The clients responded with interest and warmth, and by the end of the session, several of them commended me on my ability to bridge cultural gaps through genuine communication. Outside of work, I continued to immerse myself in experiences that enriched my understanding of language and life. Evenings were often spent in local cafes, where I joined impromptu discussions with other young professionals and students. One night, while sipping a cup of hot chocolate at a quaint coffee shop downtown, I found myself in a conversation with a freelance journalist named Olivia. We spoke about the nuances of storytelling and how everyday interactions could be woven into narratives that inspire others. Olivia's passion for capturing raw, real-life moments motivated me to start a blog where I documented my own experiences, each post a reflection on the lessons learned from navigating airports, boardrooms, and bustling city streets. My blog began to gain traction among fellow students and young professionals who saw parts of their own journeys mirrored in my words. Comments poured in from people who felt empowered by my story. Students struggling with public speaking, recent graduates anxious about entering the workforce, and even immigrants navigating the complexities of a new language. Each message of thanks deepened my resolve to keep sharing, to keep speaking, and to keep learning. As the fall semester commenced, the transition back to academic life felt smoother than before. In class, I found that my contributions were more thoughtful and persuasive. Group projects, once a source of quiet anxiety, now became opportunities to lead discussions and facilitate debates. I took on a project that involved creating a marketing plan for a local startup, and every meeting was infused with the confidence I had nurtured over the summer. I could see the difference in the way my peers interacted with me. They listened intently, asked questions, and even sought my advice on handling challenging presentations. One crisp morning, as I walked across the campus with a cup of coffee in hand, I recalled a conversation from that New York airport. A reminder of how every journey, no matter how short or seemingly insignificant, contributes to our growth. A group of students, busy discussing their plans for the upcoming semester, greeted me with warm smiles as I passed by. Their friendly chatter and unfiltered enthusiasm served as a daily reminder that every interaction was an opportunity to practice, learn, and connect. My journey with language continued to evolve as I participated in a regional student conference held in Dallas. This time, I was not just a participant, but a speaker invited to share my personal story of overcoming language barriers. Standing at the podium in front of an audience that spanned from fresh high school graduates to seasoned college professors, I spoke about my transformation, from the hesitant Emma who once trembled at the thought of speaking in public, to the confident, determined young woman who now cherished every conversation. I recounted the vivid details of my travels, the bustling energy of New York streets, the friendly guidance at airport counters, and the unexpected yet heartfelt connections formed in unexpected places. Each word was a testament to the power of stepping beyond one's comfort zone, and as I concluded, the room erupted into applause, a moment that affirmed the significance of my journey. Even as I embraced new opportunities, I remained mindful of the humble beginnings that had led me here. Every time I prepared for a speech, every time I initiated a conversation in a high-stakes environment, I paused to remember the nervous moments at the airport and the supportive smiles of strangers who had helped me along the way. It was a continuous cycle of learning and relearning that kept me grounded. My experiences taught me that while perfection might be elusive, authenticity and persistence were far more valuable. As the year progressed, I began mentoring a group of incoming students who shared similar insecurities about speaking English. I organized informal gatherings at the campus library where we would share our stories, practice public speaking, and even role-play various scenarios, from ordering at a restaurant to presenting in a boardroom. In one such session, I shared the story of my first solo trip to the airport, describing every detail, the gentle encouragement of my mom, the calm yet assertive voice of Lisa at the check-in counter, and even the subtle corrections from the TSA officer that, at the time, had made me feel embarrassed, but later became lessons in precision. My mentees listened intently, and their eyes lit up with hope and determination. They saw in my story not just a series of challenges overcome, but a blueprint for their own journeys toward confidence and fluency. In those moments of shared vulnerability, I realized that learning a language was not merely a solitary pursuit of vocabulary and grammar. It was a communal experience. Each conversation, every exchange, was a bridge between individuals from diverse backgrounds. I learned that every time I spoke, I wasn't just practicing English. I was weaving a tapestry of connections that spanned from my quiet hometown in Austin to the bustling, vibrant corners of New York and beyond. Now, as I look forward to the future, I see endless possibilities stretching out before me. I continue to challenge myself by seeking opportunities to travel, to engage with new people, and to dive into experiences that push the boundaries of my comfort zone. Whether it's an unexpected conversation with a stranger at a local market or a formal presentation at an industry conference, every interaction is a chapter in a story that I am still writing, a story that began with a single journey through an airport and has blossomed into a lifelong adventure of communication, courage, and continuous learning. I remain ever grateful for the challenges that once seemed insurmountable, for it was through those trials that I discovered my true voice. Every day, I remind myself that language is not just a tool for communication, but a gateway to understanding the world and connecting with others on a deeply human level. And as I continue to speak, to listen, and to share, I know that my journey with English is far from over. It is an ever-evolving dialogue, a living conversation that grows richer with each new experience. As I settled back into life in Austin, I quickly realized that the lessons from my journeys were not confined to the memories of airports and cityscapes. They had become a living part of who I was. Every time I walked across campus, I carried with me a quiet confidence, a belief that I could engage in any conversation, no matter how challenging. My experiences in New York, Chicago, Miami, and countless other cities had not only broadened my perspective, but also taught me that every encounter, every interaction, was a stepping stone toward mastering the art of communication. One bright morning during the spring semester, I received an unexpected invitation via email from the International Business Forum, a prestigious event hosted in Denver that gathered students, professionals, and entrepreneurs from across the country. The theme this year was Innovating Through Connection, and they were looking for young speakers who could share stories about overcoming communication barriers. As I read the email, I couldn't help but think of all the moments that had shaped my journey. Each conversation at an airport, every heartfelt exchange with a stranger, and all the moments when I had found the courage to speak up despite my insecurities. With a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation, I accepted the invitation. Preparing for the forum felt like a return to the very essence of my journey, a chance to recount my transformation and to inspire others with the lessons I had learned along the way. I spent evenings refining my presentation, weaving together the narrative of my first hesitant steps through the Austin airport, the transformative flights that took me to New York, Chicago, and Miami, and the warm encounters with people like Lisa, Robert, Natalie, and Catherine, who had, in their own small ways, encouraged me to keep speaking. The day of the forum arrived, and I found myself once again in the thrumming environment of an airport. This time, it was Denver International Airport, a sprawling terminal that buzzed with travelers from every corner of the country. As I navigated the familiar routine of check-in and security, I reflected on how different I felt compared to my very first solo trip. At the security checkpoint, a kind officer named Brandon greeted me with a nod and said, "You're glowing today, Miss Carter. Off to change the world?" His comment made me smile, and I realized that each interaction had contributed to a growing sense of self-assurance that I now shared freely. After settling in the departure lounge, I met up with a small group of fellow speakers. One of them, a bright young woman named Jasmine from San Francisco, asked, "Emma, your story has inspired so many of us. How did you find the courage to keep speaking even when you were scared?" I paused for a moment, looking out at the planes taking off in the distance, and replied, "Every airport, every conversation taught me that perfection isn't the goal, It's about connection. Every time I spoke, I learned a little more about myself and the world around me. And I realized that the imperfections in our language make our stories all the more genuine. In Denver, the forum was held in a modern convention center that buzzed with energy and anticipation. I was introduced as a speaker on a panel alongside seasoned entrepreneurs and academic leaders. As I stepped onto the stage, I felt a surge of determination, a culmination of all those moments when I had chosen to speak, to reach out, to connect. I began my presentation by recounting the unforgettable details of my journeys, the gentle encouragement of airport staff, the unexpected wisdom shared by strangers in coffee shops, and the many small moments that had collectively transformed my approach to language and life. I spoke about the transformative power of stepping into new environments, even if it was just another airport. I described the thrill of ordering coffee in New York, the learning curve of navigating a sprawling terminal in Chicago, and the profound conversations I had had over a shared meal in Miami. I explained that learning English, for me, was never about the flawless articulation of words, but about using every interaction, whether a quick greeting from a taxi driver or an in-depth discussion with a business mentor, to build bridges between people. After my talk, the room filled with applause and numerous questions. A professor from a nearby university, Dr. Rebecca Monroe, approached me afterward. "Your journey is a powerful reminder that our experiences shape our voices," she said. "I'd love to collaborate with you on a research project about the role of real-life experiences in language acquisition." Her words filled me with a sense of possibility, and I quickly agreed, excited at the prospect of sharing my experiences with a broader academic community. Over the next few weeks, I balanced my regular studies with the preparations for this new project. I began to document my experiences more meticulously in my blog, expanding on every detail, from the small smile exchanged with a TSA officer to the enlightening discussions with industry leaders. I started receiving messages from readers who shared their own struggles with language and communication, and each note served as a reminder that my journey was far from solitary. My words, once a source of anxiety, had now become a source of empowerment for others. One evening, as I sat in a cozy corner of a local cafe in Austin, I noticed a group of students gathered around a table. They were discussing a recent podcast on effective communication and seemed eager to share their own experiences. I approached them with a warm smile and introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Emma Carter," I said. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. Would you mind if I joined in?" They welcomed me with enthusiasm, and soon we were immersed in a lively discussion about the challenges of public speaking and the power of genuine conversation. In that cafe, I realized that my journey had come full circle. I was now not only a student who had once feared speaking English in public, but also a mentor and a storyteller, guiding others through their own struggles. I shared with them the simple yet profound lesson I had learned, that every conversation, no matter how brief or imperfect, was an opportunity to connect, learn, and grow. As spring turned to summer, my calendar filled with invitations to share my story at various events across the country. I traveled by plane, bus, and even by car for these engagements, each journey reinforcing the notion that the world was interconnected by our shared experiences. I met professionals from diverse backgrounds, listened to their challenges with language and communication, and found in their stories echoes of my own struggles and triumphs. One memorable trip took me to a small town in Oregon, where I was invited to speak at a community center. The setting was intimate, a modest room filled with local residents eager to learn about the transformative power of communication. After my talk, an elderly gentleman named Harold approached me. With a gentle smile and eyes that sparkled with decades of life experience, he said, "Emma, your journey reminds me that it's never too late to learn or to share. I used to be so afraid of speaking up, but your words have given me the courage to start writing letters to my old friends." His heartfelt gratitude touched me deeply, and I realized that my experiences had transcended the boundaries of age, culture, and geography. Back home in Austin, as I reflected on these diverse encounters, I began to see the beauty in the mosaic of our shared human experience. Every airport terminal I had passed through, every conversation I had engaged in, was a part of a larger tapestry, one that wove together the dreams, fears, and triumphs of countless individuals. I was no longer just Emma Carter, the nervous student who once doubted her ability to speak English. I had become a storyteller whose voice resonated with the universal desire to connect and to be understood. Late one summer evening, I organized a small get-together at my favorite park on campus. Under a canopy of twinkling stars, I invited a group of students and friends to share their stories of overcoming personal challenges, whether it was learning a new language, adjusting to college life, or simply finding the courage to speak up. As each person took a turn, I listened intently, reminded of my own journey from the airports of New York and Chicago to the intimate conversations in cozy cafes. The night was filled with laughter, moments of vulnerability, and a deep sense of solidarity. We discovered that our individual experiences, while unique in their details, were all united by the same underlying themes of courage, growth, and the power of human connection. In that moment, I understood that the true essence of learning English, or any language, was not about perfection, but about the willingness to step into the unknown, to embrace mistakes, and to learn from every encounter. It was about the airports that had once intimidated me, now serving as the starting points for journeys of discovery, both external and internal. Each terminal, each boarding call, was a reminder that every departure was also an arrival, a chance to become more of who we were meant to be. As I continued to weave my experiences into my academic work and personal life, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the serendipitous moments that had led me to this place. I had learned that the path to confidence was not a straight line, but a winding road marked by small victories, unexpected friendships, and the continuous pursuit of knowledge. Every day presented a new opportunity to speak, to listen, and to connect with the world around me. Now, as I look to the future, I see endless possibilities unfolding before me. After that memorable evening in the park, I felt a renewed surge of energy, a determination not only to keep speaking, but to share what I had learned in ways that reached far beyond my own experiences. Life in Austin continued to bustle with opportunities, and soon I found myself drawn to a new challenge: launching a podcast that would capture the voices of those who, like me, had once struggled with language and self-expression. I named the podcast Speaking Out Loud, a title that encapsulated the journey of transforming hesitant whispers into powerful declarations. The idea came to me one quiet afternoon in the university library, where, while reviewing notes on communication strategies, I realized that the stories of everyday encounters, the kind born in busy airport terminals, in cozy cafes, and on lively campus walkways, deserved a wider audience. I envisioned a platform where students, professionals, and everyday people could share how small interactions had sparked big changes in their lives. The early episodes were raw and unfiltered. I invited a few of my closest friends from the debate club and some of my mentees who had attended our informal gatherings at the campus library. In our first recording session, held in a modest but well-lit studio in downtown Austin, I remembered the nerve-wracking moments of my first solo airport trip. I shared every detail: the friendly nod from the TSA officer, Brandon, at Denver International Airport, the comforting smile from Lisa at the check-in counter, and the gentle encouragement from Professor Davis. My voice wavered at first, but as I recounted these memories, I felt the weight of each experience lift, replaced by an excitement that only storytelling could bring. The response was overwhelming. Emails and social media messages poured in from listeners who confessed that they, too, had faced their own language challenges. Whether it was speaking up in a crowded classroom, presenting in front of a demanding audience, or simply engaging in a conversation with a stranger. One message, in particular, stood out. A young immigrant from California wrote, "Your words reminded me that every misstep in speaking is just a step toward understanding. Thank you for showing me that my voice matters." That feedback resonated deeply, solidifying my belief that real-life stories were powerful tools for change. As the podcast grew, so did my circle of interviewees. I found myself in conversations with a diverse array of people. There was Marcus, a seasoned entrepreneur from Houston who had once struggled with public speaking until he discovered that genuine passion could silence even the fiercest doubts. I spoke with Olivia, the freelance journalist I'd met in that quaint Austin cafe, whose knack for capturing the essence of a moment in her articles had inspired me to explore new dimensions of storytelling. Each guest brought a unique perspective on how communication had opened doors in their lives, whether by overcoming cultural barriers or by simply learning to listen more intently. One episode in particular marked a turning point. I had the opportunity to interview Harold, a retired teacher from a small town in Oregon whose quiet wisdom had long been hidden beneath layers of shyness. Over a long, heartfelt conversation recorded in his cozy living room, Harold recounted how, later in life, he began writing letters to old friends and sharing his experiences on community radio. "It wasn't just about speaking. It was about connecting," he said softly. His gentle words, laden with decades of lived experience, reminded me that learning and growth have no age limit. That interview, full of laughter, occasional pauses for reflection, and sincere vulnerability, quickly became one of the most cherished episodes on Speaking Out Loud. With each new conversation, my confidence grew, and so did the podcast's reach. I was invited to speak at university events, community centers, and even on local radio shows, where I discussed the importance of embracing imperfection in communication. One such event was a panel discussion at a renowned cultural center in downtown Austin, where I joined a group of educators and motivational speakers to talk about the transformative power of language. In that moment, as I looked out at an audience filled with eager faces, I recalled every step of my journey, from the bustling terminals of New York to the intimate discussions in my hometown cafes. And I felt an unshakable conviction that our shared struggles and successes in communication were what truly connected us. In the midst of these professional and creative endeavors, life continued to present its personal challenges and surprises. One warm summer evening, as I walked along the vibrant streets of Austin, I bumped into Jasmine, a kindred spirit from Denver, whom I had met at the International Business Forum. We found ourselves sharing a spontaneous conversation on a park bench, surrounded by the gentle hum of city life and the distant strum of a street performer's guitar. Jasmine confided in me about her own battles with self-expression and how a single supportive word had once given her the courage to pursue her passion for graphic design. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, reaffirming the idea that every interaction, no matter how fleeting, had the potential to change lives. Soon, I began collaborating with Professor Monroe on a research project that explored how real-life experiences shaped language acquisition and personal growth. The project took me back to the archives of my own memories, those early moments of hesitance at airport counters, the reassuring smiles of strangers, and the vibrant tapestry of voices that had accompanied me on every flight. Together, we interviewed fellow students, local business owners, and even some of the airport staff who had once given me comfort in moments of uncertainty. The research was both enlightening and heartwarming, providing empirical evidence that the art of communication was far more complex and beautiful than any textbook could capture. As fall turned to winter, and winter melted into another promising spring, my world continued to expand. I was invited to a prestigious communication conference in Washington, D.C., where I was scheduled to deliver a keynote address on the journey from hesitation to connection. Standing before an audience of scholars, business leaders, and fellow storytellers in a grand, historic auditorium, I took a deep breath and began to speak. I recounted the moments of vulnerability that had once defined me, the jittery nerves at every security checkpoint, the stuttering introductions in crowded terminals, and the anxiety of making small talk with strangers. But I also celebrated the breakthroughs, the empowering nods, the encouraging words from mentors, and the countless small victories that had built my confidence over time. The applause that followed was not just for the words I had spoken, but for the journey we all shared, the universal experience of learning to find our voice amid a cacophony of doubts. After the conference, as I wandered along the reflecting pool near the National Mall, I realized that my journey was no longer just about overcoming personal fears. It was about creating a legacy of encouragement for anyone struggling to be heard. Every conversation, every shared story on my podcast, every heartfelt lecture had come together to form a mosaic of resilience and connection. I knew there would be more airports to pass through, more cities to explore, and more voices to amplify. And with every new beginning, I promised myself that I would continue to embrace the beautiful imperfections of life and language. Now, as I sit in my favorite corner of a bustling Austin coffee shop, my laptop open, and the gentle hum of conversation around me, I'm filled with gratitude. I glance at a framed photo on the wall, a snapshot from my very first solo trip to the airport, taken by my mom, capturing a moment of tentative excitement and nervous determination. That little girl who once doubted every word she spoke has grown into a woman who not only finds her voice, but also helps others find theirs. Every new interaction is a reminder that life is a continuous journey of learning, unlearning, and relearning. Whether it's the simple exchange with a barista over a caramel latte or a profound dialogue with a mentor, each moment adds another vibrant stroke to the canvas of our lives. And as I continue to speak, to share, and to listen, I know that the road ahead is filled with endless possibilities. Each airport a gateway, each conversation a bridge to a richer, more connected world. I am Emma Carter, a student, a traveler, a mentor, and a storyteller, and my journey continues, one conversation at a time.